Welcome to fulfilling this belly sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
God Morgen and happy Wotan's Day to you. Today we celebrate the Norse god Wotan, Germanic god Wotan, Norse god Wotan. Before we get started today, I want to say a huge shout out to all of the platforms of which we are available on, to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed. Talk. If you haven't had a chance, now's your time to go ahead and press that button. Get those things, those followings, those subscribing, all of those things taken care of, so you'll be notified the next time this show comes on, which is every weekday morning, by the way. So give yourself a little heads up. I also want to give a huge shout out to newrealitytv.com. New Reality TV has a plethora of perspectives that can offer each of us insight and that little piece of intellect that may help us to obtain or maintain our mental space. You can also get more information about me and all my messages, my shows, my teachings, and certainly about me at norsewhispers.com. Or for those of you who'd like to have a conversation, by all means, check out norsewhispers.com/coaching, and let's set up an appointment. Let's talk. Let's get a dialogue started. Where we know a lot of times that's what it takes to begin our process, to begin our journey towards a better mental space. If you do happen to have any extra coins, I ask that you just drop them in the tip jar. Every little bit goes to helping people here in Alaska and across the world, for that matter, as we assist in these electronic platforms, and as well as one-on-one personal visits. This morning we have live the Facebook chat and the TikTok chat. So for those of you who have questions or comments about the show, by all means, throw them in there, and let's take a look and let's get that dialogue started as well. Today we're talking about Wotan. Now, Wotan, of course, Wednesday, Wotan's Day, was originally identified by the Germanic tribes before the Germanic tribes would migrate north to become the Norse of fame and fortune. They would recognize him as being a supreme god. He was the chieftain of the Asir tribe. The Asir tribe based more on war. We have to remember Wotan, of course, comes from Bor being the giant that was born, and it would be Wotan and his brothers Vili and Vi who would slay the dragon, or the giant Ymir, and to form the realms, particularly to build Midgard, Earth. So there's lots of stories around that. Now, my quest with Othin isn't as much his conquests and his victories. I very much take the same approach that the Norse sisters do, particularly the baby, Verdandi, the youngest of the three. Verdandi, who is sewing a tapestry of our lives, displaying our responses to events that occur in our lives. Now, in this tapestry was not the event itself. No one cared. Well, if we won, or if we, conquered something or whatever, nobody cared. What mattered to the Verdandi and the Norner sisters, and most importantly, Skald, who was the next eldest of the sisters, was how you responded throughout your life, how you emotionally responded to those events in your life. This is a wonderful way to consider our lives. Just for a minute, is not as much what's happening as it is how we're responding to it. Are we allowing it to stress us out? Are we allowing it to anger us or frustrate us, disappoint us? How are we allowing this event, this series of events, to alter our emotional state? We have to remember, based on what I've been taught, is our emotional state alters the way we see reality. So if we're in a good mood, we see reality one way. If we're in a bad mood, we see reality another. Same reality, we're still looking at the same thing, we're still seeing the same picture, but our brain is going to isolate and pick out those things that support the emotional filters or our mood the way it is. So if we are on our way to work and we stumble upon a beautiful meadow, we can either look at the meadow as wasted space. Boy, they should put an apartment here, or they should put a department store, something of that nature. Or we can look at it as a very beautiful reprieve from all the other stores around it. And we say, wow, how beautiful is that there's some green space, that Mother Yord gets to interact with the skies and the clouds. How beautiful is that? It's all a matter of perspective. We're still looking at the same scene. We're still looking at the same meadow. It's all a matter of how we're deciding we're going to look at it. And we always have that choice. We have what's called, or maybe what I call, the me gate. Once all of our emotional turmoil sometimes is processed through our values and through our bandwidth, we arrive at this thing called the me gate. The me gate simply allows me to accept what's coming in, what's coming out of the sheath of truth in the thought process, and I can look at that and I can go, well, that's not really beneficial to me. I don't want to remember it that way. I want to remember it in a happier light or in a brighter light. And I can do that. I can make that change, make that energy change, that when I store the memory, it's stored with the values that I want. Now, 9 times out of 10, most people and most experiences come into our brain and we simply accept whatever it's bringing. And it could be negative, it could be fearful, it could be inciting us to frustration or disappointment, all of those things. This energy can all be coming in on this thing, and we have a choice. We simply say no. I don't want that energy. I don't want that path. I want this other one. I want to seek joy. I want to seek happiness. I want to seek peace, harmony, all the things I want in my life. That's the path I want to go on. And this energy that you're sending me right now doesn't meet that criteria, so we're going to discard it. I know it sounds easy, and I know in real life it's really not. there's a lot of things that we take in and we absorb, and we kind of go, man, I wish this had never happened. I wish I'd never known this. I wish I had never experienced this. There are a lot of those things. But one of the things that the gods have taught me very well at this point is that I couldn't be where I am today had all the series of events not occurred. So, for those of you who are new, you may not know, but in 1989, I overdosed on heroin. I was in a drain culvert far out of town. I would have perished, bottom line. I should have perished, by all accounts. But I didn't. I survived. Someone found me. That person who happened to find me was knowledgeable in drug overdoses. Now, this is back in the 80s, so we didn't have the Narcan and the other things that we have today. But he found me, and he sobered me. He took me to his trailer where I stayed for 3 months, sweating bullets and doing all of the physiological things I needed to do to break a heroin habit. Not easy, by the way. But it's doable. And I did it. And in November of 1989, I was clean. Now, to demonstrate the power of the interactivity of the gods that I didn't see back then, I see today, for sure, with hindsight. But I got clean from drugs in 1989. I left Arizona for Washington, where July, well, I probably met her in May, and I married her in July. My shield maiden now of 35 years. All of these dots, all of these events, all of these experiences that I've had have led me to where I am today. I couldn't have gotten to here, to this point, to today, had any of those dots come off alignment, had they not occurred in my life, had I not experienced them. Right? Think about it. Think about it for a minute. You have two parents. Each of them have two parents. Each of them have two parents. Each of them have two parents. By the time you get back about 30 generations, you have a lot of people who had to have come together in this wide world, come together in such a way to produce an offspring. Just the math necessary to understand all of those dots that had to occur for you to get where we are, right, to be born. That's an amazing probability factor, right? Think about it. What is the possibility of, say, 1,000 people finding each other amidst, what do we have now, 8 billion here on Earth? Yet all of these people, and granted, yes, I know the numbers were smaller as we go back in history, but all of these people had to find each other, fall in love, produce an offspring, assist the offspring in living long enough to produce offspring of their own, right? Because you have to remember, back in history, teenage years were not guaranteed, nor was adulthood, right? Nothing was guaranteed. So putting all those dots together, hopefully you understand the uniqueness and the wonder, the gift that you are. Because you really are. Your ancestors have accomplished an amazing feat to get you. And then, after you were conceived and began to grow, you had experiences along this path. And each of those experiences, the probability is just mathematically fairly complicated to do, to get you to where you are today. None of those dots could be out of alignment. Because if they were to change, your quest, your desire for growth, your desire for learning and loving and expanding and evolving would be different. You wouldn't have spouses or partners or lovers or children or any of these things. Every little event, no matter how inconsequential we think it is, every little dot counts to get you to where you are today, to get you to the moment in time you're watching my video. That probability makes you incredibly unique and wonderful. Taking then that to the next level, we look at your DNA. The amount of DNA that you have from all your ancestors, all bundled together to create you, to create the snapshot that started you on your own path. Okay? Then growth happens. Now, all of the experiences that you're occurring are bouncing through this DNA to make an output based on that. Whatever your DNA happens to be at the moment, because it can change. And then you arrive at where you are today. A hell of a journey, is it not? All right. We're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about your journey, but more importantly, I'd like to take a minute with you, if you wouldn't mind, and explain how we can use life's experiences to our benefit and how we can manipulate the energy that we're receiving to grow in the way that we'd like. So, I'll see you in just a minute.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
Thank you for taking that quick break with us. We're back. And now let's talk about what these experiences mean and how we get to decide. We get to drive, right? These experiences that are occurring to us are going to create emotional energy. That emotional energy is going to then alter our memory of, really, the formation of an experience that we've had. So if you think for a minute about your life as a series of snapshots in time, boop, 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 just a whole bunch of them. Each one of those is going to be processed through our mind and our heart to produce our memories. Okay? We're going to remember this experience. We're going to remember this event. Sometimes more than others, depending again on the emotional state that's created and retained as these memories are processed. So, when we're looking at the world, when we're observing the world, we are absorbing sensory input, right? So our eyes are taking in the view, or our ears are taking in the sounds, smells, nose, taste, mouth, and the feelings. Touch is through our skin of its entirety. In addition, we also have imagination. Imagination is the brain's way of kind of presupposing, predicting, if you will, something. depending on the emotional state at the time. So, and emotion then kind of sends this energy that's processed in the same way that, say, your vision would be. I've always said, and one of the lessons I learned early was that the brain really doesn't see a difference between sensory input and imaginative or imagination. It doesn't know the difference. And it's not until you get further down the processing channel that you can actually say, oh, this is imagination, this is physical sensory input. But that takes time, and it takes an understanding and experiences we'll talk about in just a minute. As we process each one of these frames, our emotional state is altered. Maybe just a little, maybe a lot. It matters independently of you. You are creating these emotional states. Remember, I said when the energy comes down, and the energy then goes all the way through our values, which is at the bottom of the well of the self, right? At the bottom of the well of the self, the heart releases what are scientifically, or in the modern medical community, they're referred to as hormones into the bloodstream. For this conversation, I call them biochemistry, because there's hormones and there's other things that are released into the system, not to mention your resident chemistry, where your pH balance is and all that stuff. So we release this biochemistry based on the energy processing through our well of the self, or our intrinsic values, our virtues, those things that we hold very dearly up, that makes us independent. That biochemistry is released. That biochemistry comes up and is then processed through what my ancestors call the sheath of truth. And this sheath of truth, I really like the visualization of it, because it really helps me understand why. Why is it that there are some moments in time where I just can't think? I'm overwhelmed by some emotion, whether it be anger, sadness, happiness, whatever, and I just can't think. My brain is just totally fog, whatever the case. And so how does that work? And so this visualization will help you to understand that. And we've already talked about it lots of times for those of you who follow the show. It's just a tube. That's what it is. A sheath, a tube. And in that tube, as the biochemistry enters it, that biochemistry is then converted to energy. Energy then is contained within this tube, except for a couple other spaces. The bottom space we've talked about before, and that's the silt of guilt, or the silt of delta. In other words, if we don't go all the way to our values and we just take it off the cuff, this creates a delta and puts silt in the bottom of the sheath. The top part, of course, being our cognitive space. This is really what humankind's achieved roughly about, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from about 54,000 years ago to 154,000 years ago. Different scientists speak different numbers. But we, as humans, or atomically modern humans, achieved cognitive thought. And when we did, we got this little space at the top of our sheath. So as this energy is being created by the biochemistry, it's actually taking up space within that tube, taking up all of the main space. Now, if there's too much energy and it just fills the whole tube, it's not going to push out the silt. Not going to do it. What it is going to do is push out the cognitive space, and this is when we can no longer think, right? Everything loses context, right? We can't think of how to get through this. And most importantly, if the energy created by the biochemistry, if that energy is created that's too big for the tube, you actually have what's called overflow. And this overflow then goes into the rest of the brain, of which the brain doesn't know how to handle it. So you get these physiological symptoms: sweaty palms, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, trembles. Maybe even if you've gone so far, you could get physical responses like vomiting. And I mean, you can make yourself sick, right? This is the energy within the sheath. And when it overspills, this is where we create these other physiological symptoms that other parts of the brain are trying to deal with. Blackouts, you name it, fainting. All of these things are occurring when the tube has been overfilled. There's just too much energy going through it, and we're done, right? And the good news is many times this will subside. As we know, the laws of the land, the laws of the physical realm say that we have this thing called the passage of time, one experience after another. And this time allows that processing space to kind of recover. The chemistry settles down, or some other chemistry is introduced into the system, like serotonin as an example, and we begin we start winding down. Well, we're winding down that energy. Now we've got some cognitive space, and now we can actually think our way through this emotional trauma, which involves where we kind of compartmentalize things. We can break it down, and we kind of address from our mental perspective each of the blocks then, right? So it makes it easier to handle, easier to deal with. So these are experiences that all build to this thing that we celebrate today called wisdom. Wisdom is simply knowledge connected with experience, and they form this upper layer called wisdom. Wisdom, you could really say, is a relational matrix that's laying in the mind that begins the connection between all these different knowledge stacks. So that's really what wisdom does. It allows us to kind of make relationships between all of our different knowledges. A very important function in modern day life. So today we celebrate Guten. I hope you will take some time today to think about those experiences that we're having in our lives every day and how they're affecting you, how they may, just based on the societal inclusion, how are they pulling us away from our authentic self? The authentic self is achieved when the energy from our mood or our emotional filters behind our sensory input, when that energy comes down through the well of self and it makes it through the rocks at the bottom, right? Those values, those virtues, those things that make us us. When it gets to that point and the biochemistry is released, the biochemistry is then interpreted down the process, i.e. the sheath of truth. It's then handled properly. If we take the shortcut because maybe the water in our well of the self is just too murky, we've got too much going on within our mind, within our hearts, and that water is really murky or tumultuous, so we just bail out the side. We don't create the biochemistry necessary to then use our sheath of truth effectively. We essentially just kind of done. What this means is the memories that are stored are not going to be retained. they're going to be fairly short-lived, not a whole lot. And it's not until we review it and kind of put it in a different light, maybe a different experience, because we'll use our imagination to resubmit it into the sensory input, then we may get a different experience that we remember. So, lots to work on, right? Well, don't worry. There's nothing to this, right? You are you. You are wonderful just the way you are. You don't need to change. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to subscribe to control mechanisms that have been placed on society for 2,000 years. You don't need to go there. You just need to be you. But understand why you're you. More importantly, how do you make you happy? How can you be content with where you are and what your life currently holds? Are you changing your perspective to see the better parts of life? To see the prettier picture? To see the more beautiful existence out there? Or are you stuck in this mindset of everything's wrong, everything's bad, people's bad, everything, right? So you have a choice. You can make this choice anytime you want. Anytime. So just because in the last frame doesn't mean you have to be in this frame. This frame, you can choose happiness. You can choose joy. You can choose harmony. That choice is up to you. All right? All right, my friends. Today, of course, being Wotan's Day, I hope that you will embrace the experiences that you're gaining here on Midgard. And I hope that experience list includes joining us tonight at 6:30 p.m. Alaska time for Sporksmall. Sporksmall is that weekly show where we answer a question that you have asked us. So you can head to the button there at norsewhispers.com. All the way down to the bottom to the left is a big orange button that says Ask Me Questions. Kick those questions over and let's get a dialogue. If I make a show about your question, answering your question, I'll send you a free t-shirt. So a win-win, right? So check it out. Again, 6:30 p.m. tonight, available on all of these platforms, most importantly on New Reality TV. So check it out, and we hope to see you there, where we'll answer a question and give somebody a free shirt that they can use. All right, my friends, have a wonderful Wotan's Day. Love and light. Until tomorrow, where we'll speak of the power of Thor.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.